the Milwaukee Bucks have kept tabs on Mr. Simons, so that'll be something that we'll also discuss later in the video. Now the Bucks, I know they're looking at DeMar DeRozan, but if they don't get DeMar DeRozan, and I think the point guard situation has been rather good, the idea would be a Kevin Porter and Bobby Portis. I don't think they're going to trade Kyle Kuzma in this situation, because I think Kyle Kuzma with Anfernee Simons, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Miles Turner, Cole Anthony, and Ryan Rollins actually affects them very well, while this Kevin Porter Jr. is really just a one-year deal. And then Bobby Portis, yes, he has a few more years, but he gives them some size. Now the problem right here, it says the Bucks would have to include another contract, the Bucks would have to include another contract to get this deal done. And if that were the case, I wonder if it would be a guy like a Gary Harris, while the Celtics would then try to maybe toss in a minimum guy like Xavier Tillman, who's just really not been a part of the rotation, and then they walk away. Yeah, they gave up Bobby Portis. Gary Harris has just not been a part of that Bucks team. So Anfernee Simons, Xavier Tillman, two players that could fit what the Bucks are trying to do now. Gary Harris and Kevin Porter are really just one-year contracts that will come off the books off this season, and then Bobby Portis is the only one, but he actually could be a guy who fits next year's rotation, going back to the thought process when we were saying Terrence Mann could be included in the said deal. And if I'm the Bucks right here, we're bottom 5 in assists per game, and then when it comes into three-point attempts, we're actually, in our attempts, we're actually one of the better teams in three-point shooting this season, and as a result, I think they might want to get double down, because the only team better than them in three-point percentage this year is the Houston Rockets, and I think they might be up there, number 1 in total three-pointers made. So the Milwaukee Bucks are third in three-pointers made, so they're a team just willingly understanding the assignment. We need to jack up threes, and I think trading out 3 players the only one you're really losing Bobby Portis, but you're putting in Simons, who obviously isn't like a great defender or anything, but you're still keeping all the other defensive pieces that are there that would allow them to maximize this roster and maybe have a bunch of three-point shooting that they wouldn't have initially imagined. So that's one that I just look at right here, and I think for the Milwaukee Bucks, they're interested in DeMar DeRozan already. This situation kind of works, and we'll talk about DeMar in a bit, but I think with that, it's a very interesting thing. And with DeMar, I think he's someone that they would try to go for first, because maybe he fits what they already have with Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony being the guards, and then they would use this similar package of Gary Harris, Kevin Porter Jr., and Bobby Portis for DeMar, but this could be the fallback plan. Kind of difficult to do. Well, we've talked before, I know a lot of people were thinking, Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis for Zach LaVine, and that's where the contract situation becomes a bit difficult, while a DeMar DeRozan for Kyle Kuzma swap is actually a bit more attainable. Now, if I'm the Bucks, I actually kind of want to keep a guy like Kyle Kuzma, because he's fit into what we've been doing. And no offense to Bobby, but he's kind of been pushed back in the rotation. And Bobby, with, I believe, if you include a Gary Harris, I might have to include another contract. And this deal would have to happen after the recently signed restriction is lifted on December 15th, and for other players it's January 15th, and still here they're just $170,000 short. So it's either Gary Harris and another player, or it's Gary Harris or with a player who's making a bit more money than him. And I know somebody's going to say, what about Ryan Rollins? I don't think it would be Ryan Rollins in this situation. Could it be a Kevin Porter Jr., because Kevin Porter Jr. would allow this trade to happen, and they do need a ball handler. So in this scenario, if they were going to go for DeMar DeRozan, you're able to keep the whole team together, and it's Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis, after the recently signed restrictions lifted on December 15th. This would allow, and with Kevin Porter Jr. being a guard, something that these Kings need, DeMar comes in as like this kind of filling in that Chris Middleton role they've never been able to fill. And now you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyle Kuzma, DeMar DeRozan, and Miles Turner as your 4 guys right there. Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony have really, supplanted Kevin Porter Jr. from the role that we expected him to be playing. Now, the whole thing with me and Anfernee Simons is I like him. And I think people forget, this guy basically just went straight from IMG. He went straight from IMG Academy to the NBA. He was a high school player. And
I think he's come a long way in his development. I think people forget what he was. I know defensively he's still nowhere near what he used to be, or not what he used to be, or what people expect. This is a guy that at this point is in his eighth NBA season, and he went from someone that in his first 3 years was a single digit player that we didn't know was going to be able to scale. And then the fact that he now at in his eighth season, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, 8 years, 8 years. That's crazy to think. He's 8 years in the league, and this is a 26-year-old, okay, who's entering his prime. And over the last 2 seasons, he was someone that for Portland was a 22 point game per game scorer. Over the last 3 years was what, it's all basically a 20 point per game scorer, able to dish out a few assists a night. And I know this is maybe kind of like fake stats, because I know someone's going to be like, well, he wasn't even like, it was stat padding. I know some people are, that's the argument with someone like him. And he's a good offensive player. I think he's fun. The general idea of him being a player that I think he's a good offensive player, great shooter, and can be a playmaker. Obviously, it's known he's a bad defender, 11th worst defensive rating this past season, and defensive rating isn't going to get better. But to me, if you watch him, he's a microwave scorer. When he's hot, he's scorching. He's great at getting to the basket. I mean, he won the dunk contest, and he has one of the best floaters in the league. I think he's a decent passer when he needs to be. He's more of a shooting guard with point guard like skills, and he's someone that can be in late game situations. He's also someone who is a Dame disciple. His layup package and just finishing out the rim is simple. Like it's effective. Now he's not a cone. He just doesn't have the willingness or like the defensive IQ you want. He's also like an inch or two taller than me and weighs the same. I mean, he's actually probably 10 pounds. He's 175, I'm 165, 6'1". He's 175, 6'3". So even if he tries, he just like isn't going to be there. Like last year was his best defensive year, and he's trying at times here. The other thing is like mentally, he needs to see the ball go in to be like confident. He's someone that like is a rhythm guy. I think he's more of a two who can play the one. So that's like the biggest thing that I think a lot of people need to understand when you're looking at someone like an Anfernee Simons is there are things that you got to kind of understand that he'll have to work through to become the effective player that is maximized. I think the best way of saying it, because it's not that he's not maximized, it's just that the way he plays doesn't maximize himself. I think being in Boston has really helped him, and he looks better than he has ever in his career defensively, and just being part of a winning program. Now, is that going to be enough? I don't know. I don't know, and I'm curious. That's where I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think and why? But that's my thoughts. Peace.